Every single night, you lose your mind. Not figuratively, literally. Your brain dismantles your sense of self, floods your body with a chemical that paralyzes you, and then constructs an entirely fake reality so convincing that you never question it. And here's what nobody tells you: the person who wakes up in the morning, that's not the same person who fell asleep. Think about that for a second. You've done this thousands of times. You'll do it thousands more. And for most of your life, you've assumed sleep is just rest. A pause, a screen going dark. But neuroscience has been quietly uncovering something far stranger, far more unsettling, and honestly, far more fascinating than anyone expected. Tonight, you're going to understand what's actually happening inside your skull when the lights go out. And by the end of this, the way you think about consciousness, about memory, about who you even are, that's never going to be quite the same. There are two things I want you to hold on to as we go. First, there's a specific moment during sleep where your brain does something that should be impossible. Something that, if it happened while you were awake, would be classified as a severe neurological disorder. Second, there's a reason you can't remember most of your dreams, and it's not what you think. It's deliberate. Your brain is hiding something from you on purpose. We'll get to both of those. But first, you need to understand what sleep actually is. For most of human history, we assumed sleep was passive. The body rests, the brain quiets, and we drift somewhere peaceful until morning. It felt that way. It looks that way. But when scientists began placing electrodes on sleeping humans and watching their brain activity, they went quiet. Because the brain doesn't slow down during sleep. In certain stages, it's more active than when you're fully awake, more electrically chaotic, more alive. The question immediately became, what is it doing? And the deeper they looked, the stranger the answer got. Sleep moves in cycles, roughly 90 minutes each, and your brain changes almost completely between stages. Early in the night, you sink into slow, deep waves. This is NREM sleep, non-rapid eye movement, and it's where your brain begins its first act of reconstruction. It replays your day, not passively, but surgically. It selects certain memories, strips them of emotional weight, and starts building them into long-term architecture. Other memories, it quietly deletes. And here's what's unsettling about that. You have no say in what gets kept. You don't get to vote. Your brain is editing your past without your permission every single night, and you wake up believing the version it chose is real. But that's not the part that should keep you up at night. Not yet. Because later in the cycle, something else begins. Your brain shifts gears entirely. Eye movement returns, fast and erratic. Your body temperature drops. Your heart rate becomes irregular. And then your brain does something extraordinary. It severs your motor cortex from your muscles. Completely. A chemical called glycine floods your spinal cord, and you become, for all practical purposes, paralyzed. You cannot move. You cannot act. And in that locked, helpless state, your brain starts to hallucinate. This is REM sleep. And what happens here is something neuroscience still can't fully explain. The visual cortex lights up. The auditory cortex fires. Your emotional centers, the amygdala, the regions responsible for fear and love and grief, they activate at levels higher than waking life. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical part of your brain, the part that says, wait, this doesn't make sense, that goes almost completely offline. And into that void, your brain begins to construct a world, full sensory, completely convincing, a reality that you did not choose, did not design, and cannot escape. We call it dreaming. But calling it dreaming undersells what it actually is. What it actually is a second life you live every night, with its own rules, its own people, its own version of you, and no ability whatsoever to distinguish it from the real one while you're inside it. Before I show you what happens next, you need to understand why this is philosophically terrifying. Because the same brain that builds your waking reality, the same architecture that decides what's real and what isn't, that brain is doing the exact same thing while you sleep. Same mechanisms, same confidence, same certainty. The only difference is which inputs it's using. When you're awake, it uses sensory data. When you're asleep, it uses itself. And both feel identical from the inside. So here's the question that scientists started asking. If the brain can construct a reality this convincing without any external input, how much of your waking reality is also construction? The answer is, most of it. Your brain doesn't record reality like a camera. It predicts it. At every moment, your brain is running a model of the world, generating an expectation of what should be there, and only updating when something doesn't match. What you experience as seeing, as hearing, as feeling, is largely your brain's best guess, edited in real time. Reality isn't something that comes in from outside. It's something your brain builds from the inside, and then projects outward. Sleep is just when the external feed goes dark, and you get to see the projector running on its own. And almost nobody talks about what this means. It means that you have never experienced the world directly. Not once. Every sunset, every conversation, every face you love, you experienced your brain's version of it. A model, a simulation. Extraordinarily accurate, sure, but constructed. Always constructed. And every night, when you sleep, that construction partially collapses, gets rebuilt, gets edited, and then restarts when you wake up. The person who opens their eyes in the morning is holding a version of the past that was curated while they were unconscious, running a brain that just spent hours hallucinating at full power, and calling it a new day. Now, here's the part about memory I promised you. There's an enzyme. It's called NREM-specific memory consolidation, and it works during deep sleep to transfer information from short-term to long-term storage. But at the same time, your brain is also releasing compounds that actively suppress memory encoding during REM sleep. Specifically, during dreams. And this isn't a bug. Researchers believe it's a feature. The theory, and it's a compelling one, is that your brain suppresses dream memory on purpose. Because if you remembered every dream with the same clarity as waking life, you'd have two sets of memories of equal weight, two pasts, two realities, and you might not be able to tell which one you actually lived, so your brain erases the dreams, or most of them, to protect your sense of a single, continuous self. But here's what that means. If you've had approximately 2,000 hours of REM sleep in your lifetime, that's roughly 80 days of vivid conscious experience that your brain decided you shouldn't remember. 80 days of a life you lived and then lost. Experiences your brain generated and then quietly deleted before you could hold on to them. An entire other existence running parallel to this one that you'll never get back. And that's not sad. It's stranger than sad. It's a feature of consciousness that nobody warned you about. That you are not one self, moving through time in a clean line. You're something that gets taken apart and reassembled every 24 hours. Something that loses whole stretches of conscious experience as a design choice. Something whose sense of reality is a construction that runs on a system that also generates full hallucinations every single night, and cannot, from the inside, tell the difference. The version of you that falls asleep tonight will not fully return. Some memories will be gone. Some will be quietly rewritten. Your emotional weighting of events will shift, subtly, in ways chosen by a process you don't control. And in the morning, something will open its eyes, check its phone, and continue the story from where it thinks it left off. And it will be you, more or less, in the way that a river is the same river, even though the water is always different. Sleep isn't a pause in your life. It's the place where your life is actually decided, where the past gets edited, where reality gets rebuilt, where you are unmade and remade, quietly, without your knowledge, every single night. If your brain constructs reality, and it does, and if that same brain spends a third of your life hallucinating so convincingly that you can't tell the difference, then the question isn't whether your reality is real. The question is, what's doing the constructing, and what does it want? You don't have an answer to that. Neither do I. Neither does neuroscience. Not yet. But here's what I keep coming back to. If the brain can erase entire hours of conscious experience and reshape memories in the night without your permission, then there's one more question worth sitting with. One that leads somewhere even darker. What else is it changing, without you ever knowing it happened?